Hello again, I'm Marsh. As we covered in the last video, I'm the Chancellor of the Guardians of Solstice Minecraft server. This video is a part of a series covering the basics of server structure and lore aimed at getting players off to a running start for the server's launch on the 23rd of June. Before we begin, I want to address some of the initial feedback I received after the release of yesterday's preview. While each staff member has both an official title and a roleplay title, the roleplay title doesn't carry any actual significance in-game. It's merely a call name or pseudonym for players who prefer referring to staff by perhaps a more roleplay-centric name. As always, I encourage your feedback, whether positive or negative. All questions will be considered whether we're able to answer or not. If I have responses to feedback following this video, I will respond at the beginning of tomorrow's release. With housekeeping done, let's talk agenda. In this video, I'm going to outline the ideas behind the religion in Solstice, how the pantheon is structured, and where the players fit into the mix. Believe it or not, Guardians of Solstice started with just a name. Something about it struck us as, well, it just fit, but we didn't know why. From there we started asking questions. What is Solstice? Who's guarding it? What are they guarding it from? The usual stuff. Some magic happened while getting the answers, and throw in some chemical X, and here you have a full pantheon of gods, goddesses, and a whole lineup of other deities. And these are just the beginnings of that boatload of lore I mentioned yesterday. I'm a fan of order and structure. I like knowing where I am, where I've been, and where I'm going. That's the concern I have with any field of development I'm working with, whether it's a term paper in college or designing the organization of fictional deities. Today we're looking at the hierarchy of these deities, which has 4 tiers, or power levels. Of course, we're going to start with the top. For those of you who prefer to listen and don't look at the PowerPoint, you might want to take a look at the screen today to keep track of it all. While a lot of these deities are going to seem mind-numbingly obvious by their titles, I think it's only fair to make sure they get a proper introduction. The top tier deities are called Leviathans. There are 3 of them, each a master of some grand overarching function of existence. The Leviathans are really never contacted by mortals. In fact, many believe they're not even conscious beings, but personifications of the concepts they represent. I think that's a fair and safe assumption. The name Leviathan implies that these powers are massive and unthinking. We liked that about them. They just do their jobs, unlike the Greek gods who can't get past their social problems long enough to get the work done. But I digress. Let's take a look at the Leviathans of Solstice. First up, we have the classic. Balor, Leviathan of Creation. All aspects and instances of creation, whether it's birth or growth, are under his control. Seen as a benevolent and nurturing force, Balor tends to be the center of mortal worship. It serves their best interest, after all. It's generally understood that the overworld, the main play area of Minecraft, is his domain. Opposite and equal to Balor is Acheron, Leviathan of Destruction. Similar in style, Acheron controls all functions of destruction, decay, and decomposition. He carries the reputation of the noble custodian. His job is unpleasant, but necessary. He is rightfully feared, but also respected for his role in the universe as a force of balance and control. Acheron is said to inhabit the Nether, although none have reached it and returned alive to confirm. That's not to say he is evil or bad, nor that Balor is good. Our treatment of these forces places them at opposite and equal positions, both of them necessary to the function of the universe. As such, open worship of Acheron is tentatively acceptable alongside worship of Balor. After all, too much creation can be just as harmful as too much destruction. Religion in Solstice is primarily centered in balance. If there's anyone in the pantheon that strikes me as evil, it's this next guy. The Harbinger, the Leviathan of Chaos. He's the universe's RNG, a random number generator. Acting or not acting for reasons that can't be found, explained, or really understood. The Harbinger simply does. Equal in power to Belor or Acheron, he goes unopposed in meddling and altering the balance in one favor or another. While some cults claim that the Harbinger is another necessary force, most effects attributed to his action come with a brand of uncertainty that leaves most traditional worshippers of Acheron or Belor unhappy. The Harbinger is known for dealing substantial collateral damage for better or worse. Rest assured, he's probably the most efficient of the three, but because it's impossible to know what he wants until he's done it, mortals seeking to worship him find out the hard way that one does not choose to worship the Harbinger. Being in existence, being at the mercy of his whims, is the only worship he responds to with any degree of consistency. The Harbinger inhabits the end frequently, although he isn't bound by any one domain. The Harbinger is in all places. The Leviathans are the highest tier of divine power and authority. Directly under them are the gods and goddesses. These deities have personalities, and they are the highest levels of divinity that have openly interacted with mortals in Solstice. There are 2 goddesses serving under Belor, 3 additional gods who serve Acheron, and a god and goddess each for the Harbinger. Same as before, we'll take a short look at those under the umbrella of creation. For those of you who saw the teaser trailer from a couple weeks back, you've either wondered who the 2 sisters are, those of you who figured it out, or were told about the answer, you're about to get a recap. Commonly referred to as the daughters of Belor, the goddesses Bastet and Mahina work together to facilitate and manage the finer details of the universe, namely mortals, on behalf of Belor. Bastet is a sun goddess, her name referencing the early Egyptians. She's responsible for the aspects of honor, courage, and wisdom. The patron deity of civilized mortals, Bastet is a favorite among humans and other imperial creatures. None of the gods or goddesses have defined forms, although each tends to prefer a few manifestations. Bastet typically defines herself as a tall woman in practical yet elegant clothing. Her hair is blonde, and depictions are careful to show its airy nature. Her eyes are bright as the sun, literally. All who claim to have met her in person are blind from the encounter. Occasionally, depictions of Bastet will include wings, although they serve a symbolic purpose rather than a literal, representative one. She speaks rhetorically, politically, often indirectly to her subjects. She values the laws, rules, and norms created by mortals to govern each other, and, as such, she took it upon herself to oversee mortals as they adhere to their own rules. The easiest way to think about Bastet is that she focuses on mortals and their creation and interactions with each other. Namely, that they're doing the right thing to benefit the greater good. She's known to appreciate and reciprocate most offerings with blessings, guidance, and occasionally gifts. If you're rewatching the teaser, Bastet is the golden text. She's one of the most widely worshipped deities in the pantheon. Next to her is Mahina, whose name comes from the Hawaiian tradition. A moon goddess, Mahina's purpose is both an extension of Bastet and a fulfillment of the areas in which Bastet is not primarily concerned. In short, Mahina is a goddess of nature and natural law. She governs wit and cunning, and presides over the city of Elysian, the capital of Solstice, as its patron deity. Mahina's primary focus resides with absolute truth, the very basics of reason. Where Bastet is concerned with the law, she rules over the emotions, whether internal or expressed. Depictions of Mahina are a beautiful, full-bodied woman in flowing gowns. As her persona shifts and changes, so does her appearance. Ironically, she remains one of the more identifiable deities, as her purpose and function in the pantheon is wholly unique. She acts as a mother to all things, a great provider of solutions and simplicity, where Bastet becomes prone to overcomplication and being bound by her own rules. Mahina is quick to see a way through her own webs and the webs of others. It is said she is a spider, a bat, and sometimes that she is water, or the moon itself. Her reputation as a problem solver and solvent to the issues of existence makes her the perfect counterpart to Bastet, who represents all the structure and rigors of living. Those two play a heavy, primary role in the setting and history of Solstice. You'll need to know them later. Moving on, let's take a look at the sons of Acheron. the three gods serving as leaders of destructive forces. These powers were divided on the three bases of actor versus subject. That is, who is destroying who. The first son of Acheron is Iker, god of erosion and destruction. Iker is personified by the presence of dust, representing the gradual and inevitable degradation of all natural things. His position is the destruction of nature by any means, whether it's by a forest fire caused by a drought or an arsonist. A river that cuts a valley between mountains, a mudslide, an erosion of wind against sandstone over the course of centuries. These are all acts of Iker on behalf of Acheron. Weather is also under his control, and it takes a coordinated effort to turn his hurricanes into gentle summer showers. As you can see, these forces of destruction are brought into line and made constructive when moderated effectively. It is when Iker and his brothers are not properly contained that disaster strikes. Nakirai shares a close function with Iker. However, his focus is on the decaying and death of living things, both plants and animals. He controls the aging process and the forces that influence it. Nakirai is personified by wither skeletons and is the clear leader of the brothers, being the eldest and most influential in his work. In terms of relationships, he focuses on the destruction of life from natural sources, or from the self. Being killed by monsters, suicide, or madness are all parts of his portfolio against the agency of life. Last up for the sons of Acheron is Gerok, god of avarice and gluttony. Represented by coins of the old world, that is, the places travelers came from before Solstice, Gerok focuses on the destruction of mortality by other mortals. Often called the Corruptor, Gerok is responsible for most issues in society that relate to people treating other people poorly. He is a direct antithesis of Bastet, and the two spend great deals of time countering one another as foes. Dishonesty, murder, and the majority of Christianity's cardinal sins are all part of Gerok's repertoire. Serving the Harbinger is a pair of gods regarding fortune and chance, Meneki and Abacus, respectively. Anyone who has read Dante's Inferno, that's a long shot, I know, will understand our representation of this goddess of fortune, Meneki. Patron of gamblers and those invested in risk, she lives by the roll of the dice, deciding whose turn it is to hold fortune. Rest assured, no fortune belongs to a master forever. More calculated is Abacus, her brother, who spends the entirety of his efforts running the numbers and working the odds to plan out his favor. Where Meneki may be active at the roulette wheel, Abacus prefers the horse races. That wraps up the second tier of deities in the Solstice pantheon. Following them are the guardians of Solstice. These beings are, for the most part, creations of the gods to further control aspects of existence. The guardians are specialists in a certain field, and they hold a divine authority and control over that thing. For example, Sistina, guardian of law, is directly in charge of maintaining the laws of mortals to ensure that they are functional and proper by Basset's exacting standards. She was once a mortal, and because of the things she accomplished in her lifetime, she was placed into guardianhood of the concept of law. There are many guardians, and I won't cover them all here. You can read about them on the section of forums called the Pantheon, which opens up today. You can access it in the link in the description below. Lastly, we have the Paragons. These are the lowest deities and are nothing more than immortalized mortals, who serve as examples to other mortals. While they were not convincing enough to earn guardianship, they did earn the respect and affiliation of one of the gods or guardians, and sometimes work as agents of the guardians to do the tedious jobs, typically as spies or watchers over mortals. In Guardians of Solstice, it is possible for players to achieve this title, although the process is not going to be revealed today. Guardians of Solstice offers an interesting implementation of prayer. Players are encouraged to pray to a god or guardian for favors of sustenance, health, changing the weather, or possibly even time itself. The developers became more and more interested in the use of prayer as a gameplay mechanic as the feature expanded, and, as you might have noticed in yesterday's preview, there's a profession for priests. Knowledge of the pantheon is essential to role-playing a religious class, and we strongly recommend reading on the origins, lore, and relationships of the various deities as they exist in the pantheon today. Not all things are known, and some secrets should be kept that way. But rest assured that all things are known to the person who digs deep enough. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope this overview of religion was helpful in giving you an idea of the direction in which we've developed the pantheon of Solstice, in order to give the player something more than politics and economics to work with. We hope you find the feature as valuable and interesting as we do, and we at GOS look forward to your interaction with this feature after launch. As always, feel free to leave questions about anything you may want to know. I can't promise we'll answer everything, but I can guarantee we'll see it, and we'll certainly consider it. All responses will be given at the beginning of tomorrow's video. And what will that be over? Well, tomorrow's a big one. We're going over the races of Solstice. Fasten your seatbelts, kids. You are not prepared for the lore train that's about to hit you. Check back tomorrow for the preview of races in the Guardians of Solstice server. This is Chancellor Marsh, signing out.